morning to one and all. I am Dr. Archana, resident in the Department of Medicine at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. In this webinar, which is part of the Basics of COVID-19 webinar series, we will be discussing the topic diagnosis. Before we start, I would like to thank my preceptor, Dr. Ranveer, who has immensely contributed towards this presentation. So what do we hope to achieve after listening to this presentation? By the end, we should be able to know the available diagnostic microbiological tests for COVID-19. We should all understand how to sample, how to package and transport samples for COVID-19. And last, we should all be able to know whom to test and when to test for COVID-19. So like any other infectious disease, the diagnostic workup of COVID-19 involves a set of laboratory investigations, a set of radiologic investigations, and a few microbiological tests. So first, let us discuss the laboratory investigations. Let us send the hemogram, liver and renal function test for one such patient. What we notice is that it is very likely that we might get lymphopenia and thrombocytopenia. If the patient is sick with multi-organ dysfunction, AKI and hepatic dysfunction, we might get elevated urea creatinine and elevated bilirubin and transaminases. Let us now send a coagulation profile. We see that for most of these patients on admission, D-dimers may be elevated. If the patient gets sicker and progresses to multi-organ dysfunction, they might have disseminated intravascular coagulation as well. Let us try assessing the disease severity by sending a few inflammatory markers. CRP levels and ferritin levels are often high, especially so in severe cases. Procalcitonin may be normal or it may be high again, more likely in severe cases. If we take a look at the cardiac enzymes of these patients, troponin I and LDH are often elevated, especially so in sick and severe patients. So moving on to the radiology of COVID-19 infection, take a look at this chest X-ray of a patient of COVID-19. What we see is that there are ground glass opacities which are predominantly peripheral or basal in nature. These can later evolve into consolidation as well. Pleural effusions, masses, cavitation, lymphadenopathy, not really very common features of COVID-19 disease. Now let us take a look at the CT scans of a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. So the first scan here is of the patient on day 8 of the infection. We see that there is a unifocal ground consolidation surrounded by a ground glass opacity right here. So day 13, day 18, the patient is slowly getting sicker. What we see is that there are multifocal consolidations surrounded by ground glass opacities now. So finally, it is day 25 and the patient is slowly recovering from the illness. Here we see that many of the opacities that we see on the earlier scans have now disappeared. So when we see such a radiologic picture, what differentials should we keep in mind? First of all, we have to think of viral pneumonia, primarily influenza, and we must test for this where deemed necessary. So the classic radiological findings of influenza are a pneumonia which is primarily interstitial with a reticular pattern, mainly in the hilar and the subpleural areas. So a second differential would be bacterial pneumonia. Here GGOs are not really that common. If depending on whether the pattern is one of bronchopneumonia or lobar pneumonia, we may have patchy or lobar consolidation on imaging. Our third important differential would be heart failure. Here too, there will be multifocal ground glass opacities. However, these opacities are more perihilar rather than peripheral, which is something that we would expect in COVID-19. Apart from this, heart failure would also have pleural effusion associated and cardiomegaly as well. So next we move on to the microbiologic tests available in our armamentarium. We have molecular tests and serologic tests. So starting off with the molecular tests, the gold standard for detection of active infection is, as we all know, the real-time reverse transcriptase PCR. Here, the genes that we target for detection in the virus are the E gene or the envelope gene, the S gene or the spike protein gene, and the RDRP gene or the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase gene. So the WHO says that if an area has known COVID circulation going on, then just detecting one of these is sufficient to make a diagnosis. So how accurate are these tests? We do see false negatives if the sample is taken very early into the illness, when the virological load may not be sufficient to give us a positive test. Also, if the samples are not packaged properly, if they are not taken properly or transported properly, then too we can get false negatives. It is important to remember that we need a minimum of a BSL-2 lab in order to process COVID-19 RT-PCR samples. So what samples should we use for RT-PCR? We can either use a lower respiratory tract sample such as sputum, endotracheal aspirate or a bronchoalveolar lavage, or we can go ahead and use an upper respiratory tract sample, which may be a nasopharyngeal swab or an oropharyngeal swab. The sensitivity of lower respiratory tract samples is, as expected, higher than that of upper respiratory tract samples. So if we get a negative nasopharyngeal or oropharyngeal swab, we can go in and test a lower respiratory tract sample if feasible. So what are the things that we need for sampling? First and foremost, wear adequate personal protective equipment. Apart from this, what we require are a sample vial containing the viral transport medium, a Ziploc pouch in order to put in the sample. Then we need a plastic container containing an absorbent material like cotton in which this can all be placed, and a thermocol box or an ice box containing gel packs in which the sample can be transported. So how do we sample these patients? So first and foremost, we explain the procedure to the patient that there will be pain, and then we ask them to tilt their head back by 70 degrees. So while taking a nasopharyngeal swab, we insert the swab into their nostrils parallel to the palate until we hit a resistance. Here we roll the swab and leave it in place for several seconds and then take it out. When we take an oropharyngeal swab, we have to first depress the tongue with a tongue depressor. Then we put in the swab, we swab the bilateral tonsillar pillars, and then we go ahead and swab the posterior oropharynx. So first, we put in the sample into 2 to 3 ml of a viral transport medium and then seal it. We put the whole thing into a Ziploc pouch. Then next, we put all of this into a plastic container which contains an absorbent material like cotton. Next, we put all of this into a thermocol box or an ice box which contains hard frozen gel packs. So if we are going to process the sample within 5 days, we can store it in a refrigerator as well at a temperature of 2 to 8 degrees. However, if we want to store it for longer, we have to keep it at a temperature of minus 70 degrees Celsius. What are the serological tests that we have available with us? So these tests primarily detect antibodies that the patient forms against the virus once infected. So primarily the antibodies detected are those against the nucleocapsid protein and the spike protein. These include IgG and IgM antibodies. So here by the side we have an image of a proposed rapid test for COVID-19. So here in this little well here we will put the sample along with the buffer. We have the control line over here. So if the sample has been put properly and runs the whole length, the control line will light up with a red line. So if the patient has either IgM or IgG antibodies, these lines will appear as well. The problem is patients take time to form antibodies. By the end of 1 week, only half of the total patients would have detectable antibodies, and it will take up to 2 weeks for most or all of them to develop antibodies. So the primary use of serology is going to be one, of course, for confirming diagnosis, although late into the disease. Second, for studying the prevalence of COVID-19 in a population. Also, it may be used in asymptomatic patients to see if they have already developed immunity to COVID-19 infection. So finally, who do we test for COVID-19? You ask the person their travel history and their contact history. If they say that they have had international travel in the last 14 days, then and they are symptomatic, then we must test them. If they say that they have had contact with a COVID-19 patient, then we must test them whether they are symptomatic or they are asymptomatic. If they are asymptomatic, then we have to test them between day 5 and 14 of illness. Any healthcare worker comes to you with symptoms, test them immediately. Now, any patient with severe acute respiratory infection must be tested for COVID-19. If you are testing people from a hotspot, anyone with even just a fever, cough, sore throat or runny nose must be tested for COVID-19. Recently, the ICMR has rolled out a strategy for rapid antibody testing in cluster areas or migration zones. So this will be used as and when the tests become available to us. According to this directive, any patient with a symptomatic influenza-like illness with fever, cough, sore throat or runny nose must be tested. We can do a rapid antibody test in them, and if they are positive, we can label them as probable COVID-19 infection. However, if they are negative and we strongly suspect COVID-19, we can go ahead and do an RT-PCR for them. Otherwise, we can send them home, and after 10 days, once they've probably formed a good amount of antibodies, we can do a serological test on them. So, to summarize all that we have learned, first of all, the laboratory and radiologic findings of COVID-19 are not very specific, but they do point us to a diagnosis until we get the results of our microbiologic testing. RT-PCR is the modality of choice for active infection, and it is done on respiratory samples. It is very important to use personal protective equipment and precautions while collecting the sample. The use of serology is primarily in detecting infection late into the disease course and in studying disease epidemiology. COVID-19 testing is now recommended for all symptomatic influenza-like illness in hotspots as per ICMR's latest directive. I hope this video has helped you all gain a perspective and a better concept about how COVID-19 infection is diagnosed. I thank you all for your kind attention.